What's up, everyone? My name is Jack, and welcome to yet another episode of Jack Talks Tech. Whether you're listening via Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast, thank you. I appreciate it very much. As I have reported last week on the previous episode, our podcast has peaked number 2 on Apple Podcast Tech News. Now, I was about to check the rankings today before I recorded this episode, and then I saw that we have peaked at number 1. Again, thank you. Now that it's out of the way, let's proceed to the tech news of the week. Let's start with some Apple news, shall we? Want Face ID on the Mac? macOS Big Sur suggests the TrueDepth camera is coming. Some iPhone and iPad models feature Face ID. So, yun yung mga top-of-the-line products nila. It allows users to unlock the device through advanced facial recognition. While Face ID is not yet available on any Mac, 9to5Mac found references to the TrueDepth camera on macOS Big Sur, which suggests Apple is working to bring facial recognition to its computers. 9to5Mac found a new extension on the macOS Big Sur Beta 3 with codes intended to support Pearl Camera. You may not remember, but this is the internal code name for Apple on their TrueDepth camera and Face ID, which was first revealed with the iPhone X way back 2017. Codes such as face detect and biocapture found within this extension confirms that Apple is preparing macOS to operate with Face ID. So those codes are very similar to those used in iOS. They've also investigated that this Face ID extension was clearly built for macOS, and that is something not remnant from the code from the Catalyst technology. However, the implementation is still at early stages, so it might still take some time before Apple announces a new Mac model with a TrueDepth camera to support Face ID. As of this recording, only the MacBook Air and MacBook Pro currently feature biometric authentication through Touch ID integrated into the keyboard. Having a Face ID on the Mac would bring, even more convenience to unlocking the computer, and it would also perfectly fit on the iMac, which doesn't have any built-in keyboard. Shout out Windows Hello. As the Touch ID depends on the T2 security chip, it would be impractical for Apple to add it as a separate wireless keyboard. Another important aspect is the neural engine, which is part of the A series processors since the introduction of the A11 Bionic chip. Now, this neural technology is fundamental to the way Face ID works, as it analyzes the details of the user's face through machine learning models in just a fraction of a second. But there's no Mac has included neural engine so far. This will change this year with the transition from Intel processors to Apple Silicon chips on the Mac, as Apple itself has confirmed that Macs running with Apple SoCs will have the same neural engine as the iPhone and iPad. So they have believed that it might be the main reason why Apple hasn't yet introduced a Mac with Face ID. So there are still no further details on how Face ID will work on the Mac, but presumably it will operate in the same way as an iPhone or an iPad. In addition to Face ID, the TrueDepth camera will also enable features like, yung mga favorite nating animated emoji or Memoji, and it will have a better integration with augmented reality apps. With the first Apple Silicon Mac coming later this year, users will be able to run any iOS app on macOS, which is certainly one more reason to have the TrueDepth camera on Macs. If you have a couple of macOS devices, now the macOS Big Sur Beta 3 is available for you to try. If you're gonna do it, I highly recommend that you do it on your spare machine, not on the main one. So, something happens, you can switch back to your original OS. And make sure to keep a backup. If this rumor is true, then it's a good news for Mac users, as they will be able to take advantage of Face ID. In comparison, para siyang yung Windows Hello ni Windows. Convenient nga naman siya while you're logging in or you're going to authenticate yourself as the user of the computer. So speaking of Apple ARM chips, this next news is regarding it. Apple MacBooks A14X specs, pricing, launch date, it's leaked. According to the leaker, the first MacBook with ARM chip inside will have the following specs. So the CPU is an A14X SoC. So according to the reports, they're gonna use, diba, yung CPU ng iPad. So A14. X means it's on the notebooks. Tapos yung A14, yun yung sa iPhone and sa iPad. It will also have, RAM of 8 gigabytes or 16 gigabytes. SSD ranging from 256, 512 gigabytes, and 1 terabyte. 12-inch Retina display. A 15 to 20 hour battery life. So mas matagal pa yung battery life nung bagong MacBook compared dun sa tulog mo. It will also have a 720p FaceTime HD camera, a single USB-C port. So single, parang ikaw. So dongle is life. It's also reported that it will weigh less than 1 kilogram. Kaya lang, ang bad news dito sa leak na to is it will have a 4th gen butterfly keyboard. And alam naman natin na si butterfly keyboard ni Mac, it has a lot of issues. They even have a replacement program for those butterfly keyboard switches that has an issue. And yung mga newer version nila ng MacBooks is they have switched back to the previous version of their keyboard. They didn't include the butterfly keyboard. So I'm wondering as to why they are pushing really hard for this butterfly keyboard switch, wherein they are aware that they have some issues. It's failing them very hard. Yeah, sabi nila, it's 4th gen, so maybe they have improved it. We're not sure. We'll find out. In addition, the best news about this leak is reportedly it will have at least $799 MSRP. So for the first time in Apple's history, they will launch a MacBook that is less than $1,000. Now, if the leaker is correct. And in most cases, this leaker, correct siya. In addition to that, the spec looks respectable for a thin and light. With the only performance of the new processing hardware and software combo, it still remains largely uncertain. Now, the major difference between the MacBook and the MacBook Pro 13, according to the leaker, the Pro system is fan-cooled. So, meaning meron siyang fan compared to sa passive cooling ni MacBook. It also requires a larger battery. It's heavier than 1 kilogram. It also uses Touch Bar and Touch ID tech, and will be approximately $300 more expensive for the baseline specs. For the launch date, we are looking at around 27th of October for iPad and Mac event, being lined up to debut their first Apple Silicon system with a 5nm A14X chip. Since it is Apple, consumer product availability should occur pretty soon after the launch, with pre-orders possible on the same day. So for the iPhone 12 family, if you're interested on the next gen of iPhones, you should get the news you seek sooner. Apple has lined up its new next iPhone reveal event on the 8th of September, at least according to the leaker or the leakster. And same as they did on their WWDC event, the event is an online only, and it will encompass new iPhones, watches, iPads, and chargers. So punta naman tayo dun sa brand na iiwanan nila. Let's proceed to the Intel news of the week. So as I have reported last week, the Intel's 7nm will be delayed until 2022 or 2023. So these past few years have been, rough times for Intel, and after the announcements of the 7nm parts had been delayed again, the company has announced a shakeup to the executive team. The biggest news is that Intel's Chief Engineering Officer, Murthy Renduchinatala, I'm pretty much sure I've botched that pronunciation, is leaving the company. Renduchinatala joined Intel in 2016 when the company lured him away from Qualcomm with an $8.1 million signing bonus and total compensation package worth up to $25 million. Sana all.
Sana all.
He has been Intel's Chief Engineering Officer for just over 3 years now, and was described as the company's second most powerful executive, behind then CEO Brian Sanich. Murthy Renduchinatala, again, I botched that pronunciation, will leave Intel on August 3, 2020. But kung hindi pa bad news yun for Intel, here's another one. Intel shortages could last until 2023 as TSMC reportedly won't make extra capacity. Although there are reports of Intel placing orders at TSMC to fabricate their chips, it was reported by DigiTimes today that the points to the partnership is a temporary one. Now, according to an unnamed source, TSMC doesn't consider Intel a long-term customer and is, therefore, unlikely to build an additional fabrication capacity to meet the contracts. The sources also said that TSMC sees itself as more of a rescuer rather than a long-term supplier. Now, Intel typically manufactures its own silicon for its own CPUs rather than jumping to a third parties for help. Note that TSMC does already build some chipsets and FPGAs for Intel. Nevertheless, TSMC's 7nm capacity is already quite booked, with the likes of AMD, Nvidia, and Apple taking up so much of the fabrication capacity. And some of it will be freed from the falling out of the TSMC-Huawei collaboration in September. So it wouldn't come as a surprise to see Intel jumping at the opportunity. However, TSMC isn't desperate for additional customers. And, even prior to the news of delays in Intel's 7nm process, the foundry wasn't concerned about filling up for the freed up capacity. Oo nga naman, baka ma-overload sila or overworked. TSMC reportedly won't be creating additional capacity to meet Intel needs, which could mean the continuation of Intel shortages continue for quite some time. Intel expects its manufacturing processes to be back on track by around 2023. Mautak din to si Intel eh. They know that TSMC is the one who's processing or producing the chips of Apple. So, there's a theory in the tech world na baka sinasabotahe ni Intel si TSMC para hindi ma-meet yung demands ni AMD, ni Nvidia, at saka ni Apple. Alright, let's proceed to the next news. Google officially extended its work from home policy through July 2021. With no end in sight to the coronavirus pandemic, Google will extend its current work from home policy through to at least July 2021. That's according to the Wall Street Journal. The move will affect nearly all of the company's approximately 200,000 full-time and contract workers. It was also reported by the Wall Street Journal that the Google CEO himself, Sundar Pichai, hi Tim Pichai, is the one who made the decision himself during a meeting with the other top executives last week. Pichai reportedly sees the policy as a way to give its employees with children the opportunity to plan for an uncertain school year. Now, the move will also allow those same employees to sign full-year leases if they have decided to move. The decision applies to most of the company's workers, including those who live outside of the US. So, sama siguro dito yung mga outsourced, especially yung mga Filipinos na nagwo-work in-house ni Google dito sa Manila. So, to all my friends and previous colleagues na nagtatrabaho sa Google, kindly confirm this news. Hit me up on Twitter at Jeck. Google had previously announced that it would reopen some of its offices to a limited number of employees on July 6. So, as reported by Wall Street Journal, the company's decision may prompt each tech firms to extend their work from home policies due to the coronavirus pandemic. Besides forcing its employees to work from home, the public health crisis has scuttled various events Google had planned to hold this year, including its annual I/O Developer Conference. The coronavirus pandemic is also likely to blame for the Pixel 4a's ongoing disappearance. Oo nga no, naabangan ko yun eh. Tang balita sa Pixel 4a kung kailan i-release or if they've even started the production. With that said, good job pa rin kay Google for extending their work from home policies. Ayun, hindi ko to i-edit medyo BTS, kaya medyo humina yung audio ko doon kasi yung phone ko narinig si GOOGLE. So, nag-activate yung virtual assistant ko. Right. This next news is dedicated to my fellow podcasters na movie reviewers. So shout out kay Reviewsaurus, kay The Couch Tomato, tsaka kay Review with Wesley. Tenet will release internationally in August ahead of its US debut. Tenet may still be able to salvage a summer release after all, at least outside of the United States. Now, Christopher Nolan's sci-fi thriller from Warner Brothers will debut internationally starting August 26 before opening in select cities in the US over Labor Day weekend on September 3. The studio announced that Tenet is launching in theaters at the end of August in 70 overseas territories, including Australia, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Korea, Russia, and the United Kingdom. At this time, it's still unclear what parts of the United States will play the film. The studio does not have plans yet to release Tenet in China. Now, in other movie news, AMC Theaters and Universal have reached an agreement that dramatically shortens the theatrical exclusivity window. So, for those who are asking, that's the amount of time that the films have to play in theaters before they are allowed to be sold or rented in other places like iTunes, Amazon, or AMC's own on-demand service. It's now down to just 17 days. So that's to ensure that the films will hit at least 3 weekends in theaters. The new deal marks a radical shift from the standard theatrical release window, which has typically between 70 to 90 days in recent years, and could vastly alter the landscape of both theatrical and digital film. So from 70 to 90, magiging 17 days na lang siya. This global pandemic has changed, the world in so many different ways. Sad. Going back, Universal and AMC had previously been feuding over release windows after Universal, spurred on by the direct-to-digital success of the films like Trolls World Tour, which had skipped theaters due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. So they have planned to release future films on both digital and theatrical platforms. AMC Theater CEO Adam Aron responded by calling Universal plans unacceptable and threatened to ban all future Universal releases from AMC Theaters, although given that the theaters have yet to reopen, kahit saan, AMC would never actually had to make good on that threat. It's not a completely straightforward shortening of the theatrical window. According to Variety, the deal only allows Universal to offer premium on-demand rentals in the roughly $20 range, a regular price $3 to $6 rentals, which could vastly undercut theater tickets, will still have to wait 90 days after the theatrical debut. That term would seem to also undercut the possibility of films jumping earlier to streaming services like NBC's Universal's new Peacock service. Additionally, Aaron notes that AMC will share in these new revenue streams and get a cut those on early rentals, although the two companies haven't revealed any details as of the recording. Alright, let's proceed to the next news. So remember the report that I've made a couple of weeks ago about the 2020 Twitter hack? A man from Bogno Regis is the one of the three who was charged. You might be wondering, where is Bogno Regis? It's in UK's south coast. So there were 3 individuals charged over major Twitter hack, according to the US Department of Justice. So Californian authorities filed felony charges against Mason Shepard, who's only 19 years old. The UK's National Crime Agency, or NCA, confirmed that it had searched a property in Bognorehis with police last Friday. Also, a teenager in Tampa named Nima Fazeli, who's 22 years old, of Orlando, who was also charged in Florida. U.S. Attorney David L. Anderson said that the arrest proved nefarious hacking for fun or profit did not pay off. So just wanted to give a recap. Twitter accounts of multiple high-profile U.S. figures were hijacked in an apparent Bitcoin scam last 15th of July. It included former President Barack Obama, Amazon boss Jeff Bezos, entrepreneur Elon Musk, and Microsoft founder Bill Gates. So they have apparently tweeted out requests for Bitcoin donations. In his statement, U.S. Attorney Anderson said, quote-unquote, "There is a false belief within the criminal hacker community that attacks like the Twitter hack can be perpetrated anonymously and without consequences." He also added, "Criminal conduct over the internet may feel stealthy to the people who perpetrate it, but there is nothing stealthy about it. In particular, I want to say to would-be offenders, break the law and we will find you." Ito yung kabaliktaran ng sinabi ng DX. You make the rule and we will break them. Ayos ba yung HBK impersonation ko? Joke lang. But kidding aside, itong ginawa ng mga teenagers na to, it's a serious offense. So, they are charged with felony counts. 30 felony counts to be exact. So, kawawa naman. Serious itong hacking na to and they are considered criminal hackers. Sayang kung nagamit nila yung talento nila sa other ways instead of hacking. Siguro may future itong mga teenagers na to. Okay, let's proceed to the next news. Speaking of Jeff Bezos, Amazon doubled its profit during a pandemic. Now, Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos warned investors earlier this year that they might want to take a seat and prepare for a possible loss in quarter 2, as the company planned to spend $4 billion, all of its expected quarter 2 operating profit, on COVID-19 related expenses. Now, Amazon projected the potential loss of $1.5 billion this quarter. $1 billion this quarter. But with the end of Q2 now behind us, Amazon shared its quarterly results, and they're quite the opposite of being gloomy. Despite the pandemic, Amazon doubled its net profit year over year to $5.2 billion, compared to $2.6 billion at this time in 2019. Now, this impressive figure comes after the company spent over $4 billion on what Bezos described as incremental COVID-19 related costs in the quarter to help keep employees safe and deliver products to customers. Amazon also said that since March, it created 175,000 new jobs, of which it's currently converting 125,000 into regular, full-time employees. The company said that they've committed $27 million towards BLM donations, through $8.5 million in donation comes from employees. They've also distributed a one-time $500 million bonus among its frontline workers and partners, though Amazon didn't share exactly how many employees receive a bonus. Some of the $4 billion in COVID expenses was used to pay higher wages for people working hourly. Oo nga naman, it's very rare to see a company doing well during a pandemic that has left millions of people unemployed. Though the tech industry has been doing remarkably well, it's particularly shocking that Amazon ballooned its quarterly profit twofold compared to this time last year. It didn't lose its footing during a time of economic turmoil. The opposite actually happened. It grew. And the CEO, Jeff Bezos, says that he expects the company to spend at least another $2 billion worth of operating income on COVID-related expenses in quarter 3. So in comparison, tayong mga Pinoy, instead of Amazon, we spend more time on, papangalanan ko na, Lazada and Shopee. Member ka rin ba ng Add to Art Gang? Saka dito sa Lucena, merong Facebook group, yung Lucena Stay at Home. So kung mapapansin nyo, yung mga friends nyo sa Facebook biglang naging online entrepreneur, it's because of this situation. Since most of them natigil yung trabaho or na-lay off ng company because of this global pandemic, is pinili nila magbenta online, which is, there's nothing wrong selling online. I do believe in those kinds of people na ginagawa lahat para makasurvive during this time. Pag may nakita kayo na friends nyo na nag-PM sa inyo asking for support, supportahan nyo kasi this might be their way to survive. Okay, so let's proceed to the last news of the week. So this one goes out to all the TikTok users all over the world. Donald Trump, the president of United States, best friend ni Vinnie Mac. He says he will ban TikTok. CNN has reported that President Donald Trump said last Friday night that he will ban the popular short-term form video app TikTok from operating in the United States. It also rejected a potential deal for Microsoft to buy the app from its Chinese-owned parent company. And I quote, "As far as TikTok is concerned, we're banning them from the United States," Trump said to reporters while on board of Air Force One. Trump said he could use emergency economic powers or an executive order. It was not immediately clear, what such an order would look like and what legal challenges it might face. Earlier on Friday, people working on the issue within the Trump administration expected the president to sign an order to force ByteDance, the Chinese company that owns the social media platform, to sell the US operations of TikTok, according to a person familiar with the matter. The move was aimed at resolving policymakers' concerns that the foreign-owned TikTok might be a national security risk. Ito talaga si Trump, iniisa-isa na yung mga Chinese companies. Una si Huawei. Ngayon naman si TikTok. May galit nito sa China. May ganon. Joke lang. Sige na, medyo mahaba na yung show for today. Again, all the references will be linked on the description. Make sure to check my YouTube channel, Instagram, and Twitter. All the links will be on the description as well. So there's nothing else left to do. Hit that like button if you like this type of content. Smash it if that's your something into COVID-19 style. Subscribe if you aren't already. And I'll see you in the next one. Assuming that we all survive. Let's make the needy techie. Peace!